Welcome to Sociology of Race and Ethnicity. My name is Dr. Beverly Yuen Thompson and I am the instructor for this course. And in this video, I just wanted to overview the books from which we'll be reading chapters. I start all my sociology classes with a chapter from C. Wright Mills, The Sociological Imagination, in order for us to establish how to look at things sociologically, structurally, institutionally. We look at demographics, institutions, and power. So demographics, how the government divides up categories of people. Institutions, how institutions structure the human behavior involved within them. And power, who has power in society and how is that power exercised and what does it look like? And of course, a historical analysis. All the topics that we look at the history of this topic in order to understand why things are the way they are today. The history of white people, Nell, Irving, Painter will read a few chapters in this book in order to understand even the category of white people and going back to ancient European cultures, to Eastern European countries where the term Caucasian comes from the Caucasus Mountains, and then European migration to the United States, how the United States begins to construct the racial category that comes to be known as white, and how different ethnic and national groups became included within this category. Caste, The Origins of Our Discontent by Isabel Wilkerson will examine in this book how certain countries such as the United States and India established caste systems based on particular demographics, particular to that society, and how these hierarchies are created and maintained, and how this overlaps with racial identity within the United States. White by Law by Lopez examines court cases and Supreme Court cases of how race came to be constructed within the legal system historically and contemporarily, how that still resonates. The Making of Asian America by Erika examines the history of most all of the Asian ethnicities that have migrated to the United States, the history of why they did migrate to the United States, and their experiences within this country historically and contemporarily. We next turn to examine how racial identity is constructed and experienced within higher education and college, focusing specifically on college students. So we start with The Meaning of Multiraciality by Aurora Chang and examine college students' identity production. And we examine the experience of multiracial students and how they experience their racial identity construction on campus. Next, we turn to Black and Queer on Campus by Michael Jeffries to examine the experiences of Black and queer college students within two different types of colleges. HBCUs, historically Black colleges and universities, as well as predominantly white institutions, and how these students experience both their racial and their sexual orientation identities in the college experience. Stories of Survival, The Paradox of Suicide Vulnerability and Resiliency Among Asian American College Students by Wong. So we'll examine the intersection of Asian American students and mental health and suicide vulnerability within college campuses. Lean Semesters, How Higher Education Reproduces Inequality by Sekile and Nzinga examines the experience of Black women in higher education as they pursue PhDs and end up with adjunct employment within higher education, and thus saddled with student debt and insecure employment opportunities. They find out that the PhD is not a golden ticket out of financial insecurity. And finally, we'll look at a few chapters in Sociology of Housing, How Homes Shape Our Social Lives, edited by Brian M. McCabe and Eva Rosen. And we'll look at the intersections of some particular racial ethnic identities and home ownership challenges. So please do join me, whether you're enrolled in the class or if you're just a public sociologist who's interested in sociological issues within our society. I invite you to explore these books and join into our conversation and learn some sociological information about race and ethnicity in the United States.